Former Iowa head coach Lisa Bluder had a front row seat for Clark's record-breaking career. Lisa knew Caitlin would be special the first time she watched her play. Do you remember the first time you saw Caitlin play, and what were your thoughts?
Scott, I do remember. She was like 7th grade playing up against high school players, and I thought, wow, this kid is going to be pretty amazing.
Weeks went by, and suddenly our AAU coach called me and said, hey, I think Caitlin's having second thoughts about going to Notre Dame. Would you still have a place for her? Yeah?
That's a funny question. That's a funny question.
Yeah.
Well, let me think about it for a minute. Fantastic.
My husband and I were out having dinner. I can remember exactly, where we were, what table we were sitting at, and the phone rang. It was Caitlin. I said, I gotta go outside and take this, Dave. And so I went out into the outside the restaurant, and she said, Coach, do you still have a spot? Would you still like me to come to Iowa? And I said, absolutely.
Lisa Bluder just revealed the real reason Caitlin Clark was impossible to coach at Iowa. And it wasn't attitude, it wasn't ego, it wasn't drama. Coaching Caitlin wasn't easy, even when it looked perfect on the outside. In an ESPN-level spotlight, a dream season can become a daily test, and Bluder lived inside that test for years. Because Caitlin wasn't impossible to coach because she was a problem. She was impossible to coach because she was a once-in-a-generation solution, and everyone had an opinion about how to use her.
You have, no secret, the National Player of the Year on your team, right? Caitlin Clark is the person to see, the person to beat. Everybody's trying to figure out how to slow her down. We see the numbers, but what, in your opinion, you see every day, what makes her so great?
First of all, you have to have an amazing work ethic to be great at anything, right? I mean, you got to put in the time, you got to believe in yourself, and she has all those qualities. People don't understand how smart she is. I mean, she is extremely smart. She can remember anything, and that helps with her scouting. It helps with angles and passing and that sort of thing. What people don't understand is that when she's in an interview, she's almost very different than when she's on the floor.
Picture warm-ups before tip-off. The arena is already loud, but it's not the fun kind of loud. It's tense. Phones are up, cameras are pointed, people are waiting for something before the ball is even live. One missed jumper becomes a clip. One quiet moment becomes a take. And Bluder is standing there knowing tonight won't just be a game. Tonight will be judged like a trial. That's what she meant when she talked about the weight Caitlin carried. Not points, the weight of being treated like a symbol instead of a player. Bluder said she knew Caitlin would be special the first time she saw her. Caitlin was in 7th grade, playing up against high school players, and Bluder thought, wow, this kid is going to be pretty amazing.
Do you remember the first time you saw Caitlin play, and what were your thoughts?
Scott, I do remember. She was like 7th grade playing up against high school players, and I thought, wow, this kid is going to be pretty amazing. You could tell she had moxie at a young age and was out there very confident. You could tell that she was going to be special.
Therefore, this wasn't a surprise star that arrived overnight. The pressure started early because people realized the sport was about to tilt toward one player. And once that tilt happened, coaching stopped being normal. On most teams, a coach can experiment. You can let a player struggle through a rough stretch and teach a lesson in private. But with Caitlin, nothing stayed inside. Every possession had an audience. Every miss became a clip. Every adjustment became a referendum on the program. Now add the chess match. Opponents didn't guard Caitlin like a normal scorer. They built entire nights around making her uncomfortable. Traps, face guarding, 2 defenders shading her before she even crossed half court. Sometimes the goal wasn't to stop the shot, it was to wear her down, to drain her patience until she forced something. Here's the part most fans miss. When teams play you like that, your coach isn't just drawing plays. Your coach is creating answers in real time. New spacing, new reads, new counters, but also something harder. Emotional steadiness, because Caitlin wasn't only fighting defenders, she was fighting expectations. If she scored 30, people asked why it wasn't 40. If Iowa won, people said it was inevitable. But if Iowa lost, people demanded someone to blame. And Bluder talked about how fast the noise could grow. One bad stretch didn't stay as a bad stretch. It became a week of talk, not just from opponents, but from fans, media, and strangers online deciding what Iowa should be. That's why even something as simple as Caitlin's birthday shout-out hits different, because it reminds you she wasn't just a stat line. She was a person living inside a storm, trying to play free while the world tried to pin her down. That is the real reason Bluder described it as difficult. Caitlin was not the kind of player you fit into a plan. She was the plan. So Bluder had to walk a tightrope every night. Structure versus freedom. Too much structure turns a creator into a robot. Too much freedom can pull a team out of rhythm. With Caitlin, the system had to breathe. Reads had to be simple enough to play fast, but flexible enough to let her improvise when the defense broke its own rules. Because her greatest weapon wasn't only range, it was timing. She could see the next action before it happened. She could punish the first wrong step, but that gift creates a coaching risk. If you give a star that much latitude and the results dip, the blame doesn't land on the player's genius. It lands on the coach letting it happen. So Bluder had to protect Caitlin's freedom while also protecting the team from chaos. And that brings us to the quiet challenge, the locker room. When one player becomes the headline, everyone else can start to feel like supporting cast. Iowa didn't have extras, they had real contributors. Monica Sinano gave them an interior foundation. Kate Martin did the glue work that holds possessions together. Gabby Marshall stretched the floor and took tough assignments. Hannah Stolka added pressure in transition. Keeping those pieces invested while the spotlight stays glued to one person takes constant management. The best programs don't pretend the star isn't the star, but they make every role feel essential because teams don't run on attention, they run on clarity. And the moment got heavier as the stakes climbed. The hardest nights weren't always the ones where Caitlin scored big. The hardest nights were the endings. The title game loss to LSU hit like a sudden stop, but the loss to South Carolina carried a sharper finality. Last run, last chance. Last time wearing that uniform on that stage. A coach has to help a player process heartbreak in private, while the public demands a reaction in real time. You have to let her hurt, but you can't let it swallow the group. And after years inside that level of intensity, Bluder stepping away after the Caitlin era makes sense. Not dramatic, human. When you pour yourself into an era that loud, it's normal to ask what you're chasing next. But here's what makes this story bigger than Iowa. It didn't end when Caitlin left. It changed uniforms. Now Caitlin is in Indiana sharing a locker room with Aaliyah Boston, two former college centerpieces learning how to share space, share leadership, and build something new. And you can see the carryover. The way Caitlin connects with teammates now says a lot about what she learned long before the pros. So when Lisa Bluder says coaching Caitlin was impossible, don't hear it as a complaint. Hear it as respect. A coach admitting the truth, that the sport moved under their feet in real time, and their job was to keep the player, the team, and the pressure from tearing it apart. That's what made it so hard. That's what made it historic. If you're still watching, drop Bluder Blueprint in the comments.
What's up, you guys? I'm Rachel Demita, and welcome to the Courtside Club. Just when we thought this Cheryl Swoops drama was gonna blow over, things just got so much messier.
All that hate don't get you nowhere. Haters always gonna get theirs, man. They always gonna get theirs. News has broken. We didn't even know. Y'all remember all the hate and jealousy that Cheryl Swoops was kicking over there on Gil's Arena during Caitlin Clark's rookie year and even before her rookie season even started? Y'all remember all of that? They have both been fired.
ESPN just put Cheryl Swoops back in the middle of the Caitlin Clark conversation, but fans noticed something else first. Her name started vanishing from broadcast lineups, and now the internet is calling it fired again.
When everybody else, they're quick to throw stats, right? It's like, oh, well, this is what she did. Like somebody's like, oh, Cheryl Swoops only scored 34 points in the WNBA. Caitlin scored 35. So you can't use stats when it benefits you.
Let's be careful with words. I'm not saying there's been an official press release that says you're terminated. What I'm saying is, when teams began announcing their broadcast teams for the new season, people started pointing out that Swoops wasn't there anymore.
They have both been fired from Underdog Sports, allegedly and according to Gilbert Arenas.
And the silence felt organized. Therefore, the real question isn't, did she get fired? The real question is, did the WNBA quietly decide it's done tolerating the Clark smear campaign and finally made an example out of a legend? Because if that's what's happening, it changes the rules for everybody. Stay to the end because I'm going to give you the one signal that tells you whether this is a real industry blackout or just online noise. Now, here's what most people don't know. This isn't the first time Sheryl Swoopes has had a consequences finally arrived moment. Back in 2016, Loyola University Chicago investigated what players described as a toxic, volatile environment.
Loyola University basketball coach Sheryl Swoopes, she's under investigation accused of mistreating players. One of them is speaking out this morning, telling us why she wanted to transfer.
Not tough coaching, not standards. Players described fear, humiliation, and emotional blow-ups that left people crying during halftime or sitting in silence during practice.
Loyola College basketball coach Sheryl Swoopes is being investigated this morning amid allegations that she mistreated players.
It was the environment she created. I was belittled, humiliated, made to feel extremely small.
The details matter because they show a pattern. When power is challenged, the response isn't calm leadership, it's pressure. It's control, it's volatility. But here's the key. That situation was behind closed doors. This time, it's in front of cameras. And the target isn't a roster, it's Caitlin Clark. While most of basketball was celebrating Clark's college run and her arrival as the engine of the Fever's new era, Swoopes kept repeating narratives that didn't just sound harsh, they sounded sloppy. She claimed Caitlin needed 5 years to break the scoring record, but Caitlin did it in 4 seasons.
Just for Caitlin, but you asked me about Caitlin. If you're going to break a record, to me, if it's legitimate, you have to break that record in the same amount of time that that player set it. Yeah, that'll go in the record books as Caitlin Clark is the all-time, whatever it is. I don't even know what the number is, but that's the way it'll be. And I don't think it should be.
She claimed Caitlin takes around 40 shots a game, but Caitlin averaged roughly 22.7 shots.
Caitlin Clark right now probably takes about 40 shots a game.
Here we go.
I know you like that.
Hell yeah.
Those aren't tiny mistakes. Those aren't "I was off by a little." Those are the kind of numbers you say when you're not checking facts, because facts aren't the point. The point is to make the viewer feel something. Selfish, overrated, not real. Therefore, the problem isn't criticism. Criticism is normal. The problem is when criticism turns into a pattern of misinformation that follows the same player every time her name comes up. And once that pattern locks in, the audience starts seeing it as personal. That's why this escalated beyond fans arguing online, because other voices stepped in. One of the loudest moments came when a major sports personality went off about how you can't talk about the Indiana Fever's success and accidentally leave Caitlin Clark out of the story. He basically said, "You know basketball too well for that to be an accident." But the bigger turning point was Nancy Lieberman, because Lieberman didn't just disagree with Swoopes, she challenged her credibility. Lieberman reached out directly to correct the false stats and make the simplest point in sports media. Facts matter. And according to Lieberman, that conversation didn't go well. She later said their relationship basically stopped.
I got off the treadmill and I called her as a friend and I said, you know, you can say whatever you want. You can have your own opinion about anybody, but you do have to get the statistics right. I mean, facts matter. And if you just get ahead of this and just say, hey, I made a mistake on my numbers, then this thing is over and everybody respects you for your opinion. And, you know, you might like Boston, I might like the Yankees. You know, it's okay to have difference of opinions. Well, she got upset with me on the phone, and I was like, Sheryl, you know, I'm not doing anything to hurt you. I'm just sharing. We're talking. And so our relationship it pretty much is not happening at this point.
Now pause here, because this is where the story flips. When fans say fired again, they're pointing to what happened next. The transcript you're working from claims the WNBA didn't just stop putting Swoopes on Fever games. It claims she started getting pulled from everything. Teams began announcing broadcast teams for the new season, and her name kept getting left off. Then the Dallas Wings announced their broadcast team, and people noticed she wasn't there anymore. Not less airtime, not different assignments. Missing. And in the online world, missing equals punished. Therefore, the rumor became, the league made a quiet, league-wide decision to distance itself from her commentary. Again, I'm not saying we have an official statement that confirms a firing, But I am saying the pattern of omissions is exactly the kind of thing that makes fans go, oh, this isn't random. Especially because Nancy Lieberman, the same person who publicly defended Caitlin and pushed back on the misinformation, kept her spot. That contrast is the whole story. The analyst who defended rising talent stays. The analyst who kept tearing down the biggest rising talent disappears. That's why people are calling it fired again, because it looks like the league chose a side. But here's where it gets even more revealing. Right after that absence became a talking point, Swoops suddenly appeared on ESPN, sounding like a different person. Instead of dismissing Caitlin, she praised the Fever. Instead of downplaying her growth, she talked about how much stronger Caitlin got in the off-season. Instead of treating Indiana like a cute story, she described them like legitimate contenders. It was a full 180. And that's why the internet didn't treat it like growth. They treated it like panic. Because the timing makes it feel like damage control. Therefore, the real headline isn't Swoops is nicer now. The headline is, when consequences show up, the tone changes immediately. Now, where does Caitlin Clark explodes fit into this? Not as a screaming match, not as a rant, but as a reality. Her impact is now so big that it forces corrections. It forces accountability. It forces people to pick between attention and integrity. Caitlin's presence has become the WNBA's most valuable product. Ticket demand, TV segments, social engagement, and the constant debate. Love her or hate her, she moves the entire machine. But the machine can't afford misinformation that poisons the product long term. That's why this matters for every player, every analyst, and every network. Because this isn't just about one legend being punished. It's a warning shot. If you build your platform on tearing down the league's biggest draw with shaky facts, you might not get a second chance. Now let me give you the payoff I promised. Here's the one signal that tells you whether this is a real blackout or just internet exaggeration. Watch the official broadcast team announcements and season coverage week by week. If multiple teams keep releasing their lineups and her name keeps missing and she doesn't appear across the league's broadcast rotation, that's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. But if she shows up again in a different role, on a different team's coverage, or in a rotating panel slot, then the fired again narrative was mostly fans connecting dots that weren't there. That's the tell. Not one clip, not one viral tweet. A repeated absence across official lineups. And if this blackout is real, here's what it means for the Fever. Indiana is no longer happy to be here. They've got a foundation, they've got momentum, and they're building the kind of roster that turns attention into wins. Therefore, the next stage of the Caitlin Clark era isn't about proving she belongs. It's about punishing everyone who tried to rewrite what we were all watching in real time. So I'll ask you the blunt question. Do you think Sheryl Swoops deserves to be removed from broadcast if the league believes she was spreading misinformation? Yes or no? And if you're still watching, drop Facts Matter in the comments.